Hello and welcome to the Scottish Roadscast, a podcast all about Scotland's roads, bridges and motorways. I'm John and I'm joined by Stuart. How are you, Stuart?
Yeah, all good here, John. Good to see you again. Been a wee while since we recorded a podcast.
It has.
What have you been
Very
up to?
busy grown-up lives.
Yeah.
Stuart, if I told you what I've been up to, this podcast would never end.
Right,
To be
okay.
honest with
So
you,
it's
it's
been that
been
good,
it's
has it?
been that busy. To be honest, but this is a good little episode we've got today because we're going to be talking about the Springburn Expressway.
Uh-huh.
For those of us, or for those of you that are listening that are from Glasgow, that is quite an important road in Glasgow, leading from the M8 at junction 15. So anyone in the sort of Springburn area, or if you're going to Costco, will know this road quite well.
Yep.
So I don't know if you want to do the honours, Stuart. How did this thing come about?
It's an interesting road, this one. I mean, we're calling it the Springburn Expressway, but in reality, it isn't actually called that
No,
now.
it's called the A803
Yeah,
Springburn Road.
Springburn Road. The Springburn Expressway label comes from its original designation in the Highway Plan for Glasgow, published, of course, in 1965, that envisaged this expressway as another spoke coming off of the inner ring road
Kind of
through
like
Glasgow.
so like the Clydeside Expressway, but
Exactly.
serving the northern districts of the
That's
city.
right. And when I look to my left here in SRA HQ, I can look at the Springburn Expressway and the big plan that's up on the wall, and you can see that it was very clearly envisaged as a sort of quick link to Bishopbriggs, linking in with other planned routes such as the North Link motorway and the Bishopbriggs Expressway as well. You know, it was planned as this fast link, you know, linking in with other pieces of the puzzle, just to help get people about the northern end of the conurbation, because even in those days they knew that there was going to be growth of housing and facilities to the north of the city, not just in Springburn, but also in Bishopbriggs and Kirkintilloch and these other areas, Auchinlearn and, you know, all these places. And they felt, well, let's put a nice dual carriageway expressway class road in there to cater for those movements, because Springburn Road, even back in the 1960s, was a popular busy route coming in, you know, from the north of the city.
It was, and this would nicely link up with this new shiny inner ring road.
That's right.
Up at the corner of the north flank, which would then lead down the east flank. This is a good. I always feel when we talk about these things, Stuart, people might be like, "What are they on about?" So it's a good opportunity to plug our website and the interactive map. So you can go on. We have a web page for the Springburn Expressway. We'll mention that at the end as well. But you can also go into our map section and actually see the road that we're talking about and what it was ultimately coming to be.
Yeah,
So
absolutely right, John. And really, in a way, the Springburn Expressway was a continuation of the east flank of the inner ring road, because if you'd been heading north in the east flank, the road ahead would have been the A803M, as it was numbered on some of the original plans and signs, your proposals that we've seen. And that would have continued north. And I think it was originally envisaged that all of the junctions that would be built on that road would have been grade separated. So that's to say with flyovers and the like.
So that you say you've heard that designation A803M.
Yeah.
Does that mean then, with all flyover junctions, would one be safe to assume that was going to be a motorway?
I think
Yet it's called expressway.
I think we can assume that the motorway traffic coming off the inner ring road east flank would not have had an alternative route, at least until the first junction.
So it's one of these de facto motorways, because I see what you mean.
So it would probably have been under motorway regulations to at least the Charles Street footbridge, you know, where traffic could have joined, say, from Baird Street, for example, or from Royston.
That's the big long footbridge that kind of goes diagonally across the road.
That's right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some of those signs that we've seen, proposed signs and drawings that we've seen from the 1970s when they were planning the second and third stage of Townhead interchange, there's actually foundations for sign gantries around that junction, dotted all over that junction. The next time you're driving through, have a look and you'll see all these unused concrete plinths that sit around there. They were all proposed gantries on there, but because they ran out of money, they decided not to put the gantries up and to deal with them at a future phase. But other drawings had already been produced for the sign gantries, so the sign panels actually would have had patches over the A803M, because at that time they still presumed, even by that stage, that either the east flank was going to go ahead all the way, or we had the Townhead to London Road link. So that would have been under sort of motorway restriction anyway. So
Right.
that was sort of the thinking there.
That's very interesting. So there's a little fact for our listeners. If you're ever walking around Townhead heading up Springburn Road, you can see these plinths. Do you know, I remember this because I asked you about these. I said, oh, was a gantry removed? And you said, well, no, there was never a gantry there in the first place. These were for proposed ones that never came.
Yeah,
Very
exactly.
Cool. Yeah. So the story, it was in the highway plan, of course, 1965 it was proposed. You've given us, Stuart, a very good description of how grand they wanted this route to be, with grade separated junctions and obviously the bottom part of it in under kind of motorway regulations. The thing is, it didn't quite turn out that way, the way that we've got it now. So the route was built in 2 stages, with kind of two contracts going between it. And I believe the first section opened up in 1984.
That's right. So there's a bit more of a story really that needs to come first. So when we've discussed in podcasts previously about the highway plan and the Greater Glasgow Transportation Study and all these things, you'll remember that we discussed that different routes were coming at different stages. Okay, so like the M8 across the city, and the Clydeside Expressway and the M73 and all these things were all Target 1, Stage 1 roads, and that was that they were to be completed by 1975. Okay, ultimately it was 1980 before they were all done, but that was the original plan.
You've got to have a date. Yeah,
that's right. The Springburn Expressway was a Stage 2 or a Target 2 scheme, so that put it into the same bracket as the south and east flanks of the Ring Road, the Maryhill Motorway, and 1 or 2 other roads that, like the North Link and the M80, the Stirling Motorway, that sort of thing, right?
Okay. Yep.
So what that meant was that from a development point of view, the design and the planning and all the rest of it all came several years after the design and the planning for the M8 and the Clydeside Expressway and the like. However, with all the change politically, so the corporation ceasing to exist, Strathclyde Regional Council coming into being, they had to consider what schemes they were going to take forward with the new reduced budget that was available to them in the mid-1970s. And you'll recall, we've had these discussions before, I think, where Strathclyde region inherited something like 50 schemes and decided they were only going to go ahead with 19 of them, right? So Springburn Expressway, or the Springburn Road Realignment, as I think it might have been by that point.
That's the name it evolved into.
Was one of the ones that was chosen to go ahead. However, there were wider implications in the Springburn area because there was other clearance and things that were going to go ahead.
There was comprehensive redevelopment that went on in that area. So again, like the inner ring road, for large parts of it, it was more, the area was being cleared out and the road was sort of was going to fit into that somewhere. So even if they hadn't built it, we would have still seen that. Yeah.
But this route is a bit of an enigma, right?
Okay.
And that led to a number of problems. So when you flick through the highway plan, and there's a copy on the website that people can have a look at, every route is laid out in detail. Junction arrangements, connections, layouts, lane widths, and whatever. The Springburn Expressway is the only proposed road in that plan that doesn't have that. Okay? We knew there was going to be junctions at Keplock Hill Road, Hawthorne Street, and the ones further north. But there was really no actual detail behind it. And I think the reason for that was they were still trying to iron out the detail of the comprehensive development area and really where the road was going to go. And what this did was to create this situation for people living in the area where they knew some road and some proposals were coming, but there was insufficient detail behind them, and that led to planning blight, basically.
What's planning blight, for those not in the know?
Planning blight is where there is a proposal for an area that is coming at some undefined point in the future, and that leads to property values decreasing and people moving away. And
why would it make people move away or not like that if something's coming in the future? Is it because you're left with a big gap? Is that what?
Or you're going to be left with a property that's going to be demolished.
So it's kind of like everything's still up in the air. Something's coming and you don't know if it's there. Right. Okay, I understand.
Yeah. And that became a real problem in Springburn. The other issue, though, was about local feeling, right? So really,
We have to remember this was a bit later on than the halcyon days of the
right.
60s.
We were into the 70s by this point, and people had seen what happened in areas like Gorbals and Anderston and places like that, where the comprehensive development area had led to entire swathes of area being washed away, wiped from existence, and
I prefer the term altered. But
okay, fair enough. And people, all understandably so, who had lived in Springburn for many years and had a good sense of community there, were concerned that this was all going to be swept away. And ultimately, parts of that did actually happen. To go back to planning blight, really, the sort of a proper definition of what it is blight. It says here, what is planning blight? Well, let's use Google.
He's Googled it, ladies and gentlemen.
Blight is when the value of a property is substantially reduced because of a proposal to carry out works such as a new road or airport extension, or to designate land for particular uses, and the owners are then unable to sell it as a result at its unaffected market value. So this basically, this is the amount the property would be worth, obviously, if the scheme did not exist.
It's an unfortunate situation that is not someone's fault, is it?
That's right,
really?
exactly.
It's just,
yeah. So that was a big issue in Springburn, and as I say, the concern that people had for the area generally. And I think a lot of that, and there was a lot of campaigning, there was local people organised against the road and whatnot. But despite all that, there was a lot of clearance went ahead in Springburn. I mean, Springburn today is unrecognisable from what it was years ago. The Springburn Road snaked up through the area. There was a Springburn sort of
lots of tenements, and there was quite a few kind of industrial things in the area as well, wasn't there?
It had a bustling, commercial hub to it, for retail and whatnot, and it was a local community. It was, in its own sense, like thinking like places like Parkhead, Denniston, where they're still basically in the same sort of form. Well, Springburn was like that, but the CDA, the Comprehensive Development, led to all of that being cleared away. And like elsewhere, I mean, this wasn't really dictated by the road per se. It was more the housing proposals and the like. But the engineers were able to conveniently slot this new road into this empty pocket of land. And I think really where the Hawthorne Street interchange is now,
it's kind of the northern extremity of
that's right, of the Springburn town centre, and none of that exists. And if you're ever in Springburn now, it's all very disconnected and sort of cut off.
It is. I know a bit about it because I went to college in Springburn. They've got the what's it? I forget the name of it now. The Kelvin College that they've got up there. That's right, and it has typical for all the comprehensive redevelopment, has a kind of one of these 60s or 70s type shopping centres that's in those areas. So very, very, very altered to use that phrase again.
It's safe to say that the Springburn Expressway is probably one of the most, if not the most hated of all the roads built in Glasgow after the Second World War.
I'd agree with that. For the ones that were actually built, yes. For ones that, there are some that were also very much hated, but they didn't get built. But when we say hated, we mean from a local perspective of the fine people of Springburn who this road was affecting. So
I mean, it is a really good example of severance created by roads and infrastructure, in the sense that there wasn't previously any severance there.
There's railways, but the road doesn't follow the railway.
Exactly.
Which in some cases they did. Roads obviously follow the canal. There was already that line of severance there. But the thing is, actually, prior to the road, Springburn had quite a lot of severance in it anyway, via the railways.
Yeah. There is that to consider. But as I say, because of the clearance and things, and people say on like Hawthorne Street, and there's housing developments on either side, were suddenly separated from the other side of Springburn by this road, which, around about Hawthorne Street is depressed or and cutting through that area, which is something at least. But it's still a road that wasn't there before, and this is not a road that's designed to be walked across or anything like that.
No, it's
a high-speed road.
Yeah, but that was the way things were, though, Stuart. And so for the design of this, it was all designed in house, was it not? So originally, obviously, it's Strathclyde Regional Council designed what we ultimately got.
Yeah,
the highway plan. That was Scott Wilson Kilpatrick who done that, but as you said, there was no detail in that. So they kind of planned and plotted out the route.
So That's right, yeah.
Strathclyde came to do design.
They did. Scott Wilson, Kirkpatrick and Partners handled the Townhead interchange element of the A803. So really anything up to about Charles Street really was laid down in the highway plan by Scott Wilson. Everything north of there, as you say, Strathclyde Regional Council eventually took on the design of that and then let it in a series of small contracts that could be taken forward. And like you said earlier, these were built between 1984 and 1990. I believe, so in a fairly short period of time.
Townhead stages were kind of 1988 to 85.
That's right.
Because you've got these two schemes that are related to each other going on.
Yeah, that's right. So in typical Glasgow fashion, it wasn't all built in the sort of a sensible order from north to south or south to north. It was done sort of piecemeal. So I think really the section around about Hawthorne Street, which is the full grade separated junction, that was the one that was completed in July 1984, wasn't it?
That's the one by Lilly.
Yeah, that's right. Lilly Construction. That really is where it ties back into the wide single carriageway A803, isn't it? Just as it approaches Staub Hill Road and up to Colston Road before you start getting closer to Bishop Briggs and Kirkintilloch, where it narrows down a bit again. South, though, of Hawthorne Street, I think that section terminated on Keppock Hill Road. So you were sort of Keppock Hill Road to Hawthorne Street.
That's the busy junction. I know that one because I had to go to college. And that's also the route that you take if you're going into sort of the Springburn shopping centre area.
That's right. And up until just shortly before construction, we've had this confirmed by a couple of people who were working at Strathclyde region at the time. The Keppock Hill Road junction, Atlas Road junction, was actually to be grade separated as well, with a flyover for through traffic. However, there was such opposition, and because money was tight, they abandoned that and decided not to go ahead. But if you look at Google Maps and you look at an aerial view, you will see that there is a considerable amount of empty land around about that junction.
There is. I mean, if they did grade separate it, even if you get it quite compact, more buildings there would have to be demolished, even by those design standards.
So there's some new flats that were built, I think, round about these, what's the name of that road? And I'm just looking at Google here. So Springburn Way. So there's new flats there. That was all cleared. So that was empty at the time. And likewise, the ones round about Millerbank Street and Valleyfield Street. There's some there as well that had been cleared. So there would have been space that some new stuff's cropped up. But there would have been, plenty of space to squeeze that in, really, at the time. That would have certainly changed the character of that area. And that
certainly would have made my trip into college a lot blooming quicker, because I was stuck at those lights for ages in the morning a lot of the time.
It's a very busy junction.
It is a busy junction.
Absolutely no denying that. Now, so the section south of there then, so the Springburn Road from Keppock Hill Road all the way down. I believe this was delivered in a couple of phases.
This is where it goes past Tesco and Costco.
Yeah, and all the way down to there. Now, in terms of the southernmost section of that included work to remove an old railway bridge round about the old British Rail Engineering Works, round about the where Tesco and all that is now. That was obviously a famous historic engineering works in there at St Rollox. That was all cleared. And that southernmost section, which includes a couple of sign gantries as you head south, the footbridge at Charles Street that we mentioned earlier, and the tie-in to Townhead Interchange, that was all constructed in 1990. But I believe the sections north of there are slightly older. I think the section, that passes Peters Hill Road and down at St Rollox Bray, I think they all came just a wee bit ahead of that. It's funny, it's a road that we don't actually have a lot of detail in the archive about.
Do you know why, Stuart? There was never, this is something I asked you about years ago, and we have looked for it. There was never an opening booklet for it.
No.
And I think that speaks to the fact that it was quite controversial.
Yeah.
They didn't want to make a big song and dance about cutting a ribbon on this, and also it was quite piecemeal.
Yeah.
All over the place. It didn't have a very bombastic name by the end of it. It was Springburn Road Realignment.
Yes.
Something possibly couched to make it a little more palatable. We're just realigning the road. It's not a full-on expressway or something like that.
I mean, we don't even have the sort of formal opening date for that. So, I mean, it's Springburn Road Realignment Phase 1 was the section at, Keppock Hill Road to Hawthorne Street. Springburn Road Realignment Phases 2 and 3, well, that was Townhead Interchange up to Keppock Hill Road, so delivered as a part of a couple of contracts. The contractor for Phases 2 and 3 was Shanks and McEwen Limited.
Oh, yeah.
They had a construction value of £8.2 million combined. Those works were completed by June of 1990. They were all handled in-house by Strathclyde Regional Council. Lilly Construction completed that first phase, as we mentioned earlier. That was £13 million worth at that time.
So, well, that's got the structure, 2 big structures on it.
Yeah, exactly, and completed in July of 1984. Yeah. It's a kind of road that it's over-designed for what it is now.
Okay.
Had the rest, this is my opinion, had the rest of the road network been constructed, and I'm thinking particularly the North Link motorway, I can see why it might have made sense from a traffic point of view to have an expressway class road linking the inner ring road with that motorway, because it would have made for a very quick and easy way to get from one to the other.
Yeah. When you say kind of over-designed or over-engineered, are you talking about the northern sections?
Yes, I'm thinking about Hawthorne Street and the grade-separated junction there, which, let's be honest, feels like overkill in that area.
Maybe it's because it performs so well that we think because it's doing its job, we think, oh, well, it's not needed. You know, that classic thing of like, well, what do you need it for if everything's doing well? In that section, there was some quite significant engineering challenges. It has a flyover with was it Calais Road, and then there's the railway it has to go over, and then of course, there's quite a bit there. I know what you mean though. It has that character at the top of something that you expect to see on like the Clydeside Expressway. You know?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest.
It's quiet up there though.
It is quieter. You could remove that flyover and put traffic lights in an at-grade junction in there, like all the other junctions on the Springburn Road,
and it wouldn't impede too much.
It wouldn't cause too much delay.
It depends. We're not avid users of this road. There are probably people who use this road a lot, which would be like, well, that would be...
It's in dire need of a wee bit of tender loving care.
Maintenance.
Yes.
Yeah.
The last time I was on it, it was looking a bit worse for wear.
I agree. I'm allowed to say this. I don't maintain it. So, yeah, that's yeah. No, you're quite right. But obviously, council quite strapped for cash, aren't they?
Yeah.
In terms of its other, let's talk about what it's facilitating, though. Right. So it's led to at the old engineering works, they built the big Tesco. We've also got Costco.
Very busy retail.
Very busy, close to the motorway. So it has enabled this retail park. If we know that people see that as a good or a bad thing, well, there you go. Certainly know it's very busy at those lights there. But there's also the new Sight Hill development that's coming. Now, you can get to that from Townhead interchange at Pinkston Road. But, you know, the Springburn Road, Springburn Expressway, for use its old name, enables you to get into there.
Yep.
You know, it has created journey options. If you think about it, if they just didn't build it, it would be like some parts of East End or Dumbarton Road with lots of tenements and all these vehicles fighting their way through it. Yeah. You know, so it has done good for these functional reasons, I suppose. But as you say, there was a community there that this road would have affected.
Recent years, its importance as a route for the north of the city has been downgraded somewhat because of the construction of the Wester Lumloch Road, you know, the Bishop Briggs Relief Road that's been built in multiple phases.
Yes.
Junction 2 of the M80 at Robroyston, all the way up now, almost as far as the Low Moss Prison. And I know they've got a proposal to finish the section up at Westerhill Road, from there up to the roundabout at B&Q Bishop Briggs, you know, roundabout there, the Torrance Road interchange or junction. There.
So they're going to continue that Wester Lumloch Road.
Yeah.
I always thought that Wester Lumloch Road is a Bishop Briggs one that's going off topic a little bit here, was one of these developer type roads. I think
so it kind of is, because the council have opened up various pockets of land for redevelopment and housing, and I think they've insisted in some cases that the developer make a sort of contribution towards the completion of this road, which has been built. I think we're now on to like phase 6 or something. The first section was built as dual carriageway down at Asda Robroyston roundabout there, in the link to the M80. The second and third and fourth and fifth sections have all been built as single carriageways, but with sufficient land available that it could be dualled in future.
And
if you know, so if you live in Bishop Briggs or Kirkintilloch, right, You're going to use that now rather
Yeah.
than crawl your way down the A803 these days. You know?
That's true. Yeah, just go across to there, and then you'd end up on the M80. The only thing is, if you're heading into town, then you have to go to the M80, which means going to Proven, which is a total
can be a nightmare
jam
itself.
So it provides an option, but you're right. Because there is now another option.
Yeah,
it means that the Springburn Road is not as critical. If any, do you know what?
There's also another option.
Yeah.
Because we also had the Kirkintilloch Relief Road, the A806, that opened back in 2011, that links the M80 at Horns Hill all the way up to Kirkintilloch Town Centre. So it's like Bishop Briggs has got its own access to the motorway system now, as does Kirkintilloch. So the Springburn Expressway as a route and the A803 really is nowhere near as important now as it probably was once considered.
Once prior to these routes.
And that's actually visible in the ground, because modern signage for the A803 doesn't really refer to Kirkintilloch much now. And when I was involved in the sign gantry refurbishment years ago, we actually removed Kirkintilloch from the gantries at Townhead and replaced that with Springburn.
Yeah.
Because the A803 was no longer seen as the main route to that area. So, the M80 and these other roads fulfill that purpose.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you are driving on the motorway and you see those gantries around Junction 15 and you see that for Springburn, know that was Stuart Baird's scheme that done that. Because I remember you telling me that. As I was like, wasn't Kirkintilloch on these? And you were like, well, actually, I looked at this and it makes sense to have it as Springburn now. Because it's actually a low... What you're kind of saying, to summarise it, it's gone from being a sort of strategic oblique regional road to being a local road.
Yeah.
It's how to get to Costco. It's how to get up into Springburn. But no, I mean, I wouldn't use that road to go to Kirkintilloch coming from Glasgow.
Of course you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Of course you wouldn't. And by the way...
Probably wouldn't even use it for Bishop Briggs.
No, exactly. It should be said that historically the A803 was quite an important road, because, I mean, it runs from Townhead all the way to Falkirk. You know?
Oh, wow.
It's a long A road. You know?
Goes all the way through Kilsyth and all these places.
You know, it's always been an important route. There's no doubt about it. But I think in a modern context, nowhere near as important as it once was.
So say you had a ton of money, right? And you've just mentioned about how the 803, so going from Townhead up to Hawthorne Street, the Springburn Expressway. What do you think would be a good way to maybe invest in this route, improve it from all perspectives? Because you have said, it's in a bit of need of some TLC.
It is. I still stand by the view that what they built at Hawthorne Street was over the top.
But it's there now
compared to what was needed. I think you could remove that.
But is there a need to remove that? Is anyone in that area going, oh, do you know what, this blooming flyover? Is it kind of causing major issues there or anything like that? Because sometimes, if you leave something alone, it's probably the best. Maybe it just needs a bit of aesthetic improvement.
Yeah. The whole thing, though, is very much aimed at vehicular traffic. It's not very friendly for pedestrians and cyclists and other NMUs, which in a modern context, in a sort of a current environment, is actually quite important, particularly in areas like Springburn, where they are trying to re-find the sort of sense of community and sort of bring the area back together. So I can understand that. It's very different to the Clydeside Expressway that snakes alongside either the river or the railway. It doesn't really create severns. The Clydeside Expressway has a purpose. It links the M8 with the Clyde Tunnel and the Crow Road Expressway and the M8 again south of the city. It has a defined purpose. It's understandable why the Clydeside Expressway is the type of road that it is. I just don't feel that the Springburn Expressway is deserving of that now. And I think the sort of dual carriageway section with the at-grade junctions, the signalised junctions at its southern end, I think that's the sort of most appropriate thing for that entire road. Given where it goes down.
I agree with that, because it keeps its footprint down. As soon as you get to Hawthorne Street, it takes up more of an area. But is there anything you'd maybe improve at any of the junctions, or even stop up sections of it? Do a bit of what they proposed at Great Western Road, or do you maybe think this road needs to be more accessible? Okay, lean right into the local thing. Actually, maybe have some more junctions on it. Maybe boulevard some sections of it
Yeah.
or something.
You possibly could. I think of all the
Improve
main
its
roads.
aesthetic.
Yeah, I think of all the main roads in Glasgow where such things have been discussed, I think this is probably the one that could get it without it causing too much trouble.
Mm-hmm.
If you did that to the Clydeside Expressway, it would just force thousands of vehicles onto the M8 and other roads in the west end of Glasgow.
Yeah.
Likewise, if you did it in the motorway system, the same thing would probably happen. Springburn Expressway, if you did that, well, the longer distance traffic coming from Bishopbriggs or Kirkcudtilloch is probably already using those new roads that have been built, because they're pretty good. They're good quality roads that flow freely at all times. So I think they're okay. It's food for thought.
It's food for thought. One thing you mentioned about cycling
Mm-hmm.
is you could look at the current route. We've got some room with it.
Mm-hmm.
Is you could possibly take parts of this road. Not suggesting removing lanes and turning them into cycle lanes,
Mm-hmm.
but possibly alongside it, you could do is make a more coherent NMU corridor. By the way, what NMU stands for is non-motorized user.
Mm-hmm.
It's an engineering term for anyone that's not in a car.
Yeah.
For anyone wondering what that is, but you could make some improvements just along the corridor of it, because I think we have seen a cyclist on that road. I've seen it. I wouldn't cycle it personally, but some brave people do. But if you're not wanting to do that, you're going to have to kind of make your way rat running in your bicycle through all these different streets. Maybe have something that runs along parallel to it.
Yeah.
The other thing you mentioned about being grubby, right? This annoys me. Why don't we just take a bit more care of our infrastructure and make it look nice? And it might be stuff like having a look at the landscaping, replacing some of the hard landscaping areas, removing graffiti, properly securing areas so you don't get these problems. Screening the road. I mean, if people think it's ugly, screening it properly, is there maybe something we can do there? I don't know. I think it should be definitely enhanced aesthetically in some regards. I think that would help. But then again, Stuart, it's been there for years now, isn't it? Maybe it's one of these things that people just accept. That road's going to be there. It has a purpose.
Maybe no right or wrong answers where this one.
There never are.
Yeah, I know. It's an interesting one. I'm surprised we haven't discussed this one before. What is clear, though, what is clear is that the local feeling about the way that the road was built and came about is almost entirely negative. Whenever we've posted photos of it on social media, my goodness, the response is
but it's
strong.
Part of Springburn's history now, I suppose. But what would it have been like without it? Is the thing.
It's like a lot of these schemes that were proposed in the highway plan. With the benefit of hindsight, and you look back after 60 years, there are other schemes that didn't go ahead that actually would have been better and more palatable. So when I look at the big plan on the wall, like I say, like what they proposed as the Bishopbriggs Expressway, for example, or the Campsie Expressway and things like that.
Yeah.
These roads would be very, very useful today, but they could have been built then or now, even with the very minimal impact on people.
Yes. Yeah.
From a traffic point of view on people, not talking about environmental considerations, that's a whole other thing. But in terms of, there are certain roads that they could have built with minimal opposition. But they pressed ahead with some of these other ones.
Because the practicalities of the time, pragmatism. It was a case of like, well, we can get this done now, spend the money, get it built, because if you don't, it's never going to happen. One of the things we've lamented about Glasgow, Stuart, is road connections in the north of the city. This is one of the only good roads in the north of the city, and it doesn't even go that far.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of these, you know what it is as well? It would be a strong case for completely altering and removing it if we had a Mary Hill motorway of some sort, or something else to facilitate the traffic movement into the north part of the city, because we don't have much of it. That's the only problem.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer. I'm sure if you intend to build something somewhere else, then those people are going to complain about it. So you can't win.
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right.
So,
You'll never please everyone.
but
I'm just looking at the map as we speak from the highway plan, which is on the website, as we said.
our interactive maps,
Yep.
please visit them.
And I'm having a look at some of the proposed junctions through there. And the Hawthorne Street junction is basically as proposed in the highway plan. I was saying there was limited detail. There is, particularly in the north section of it, so like way north of Springburn, there was no detail. And the section between Townhead and Keppock Road, there's no detail. The Hawthorne Street bit is actually the only thing that did have the detail there. So it's
They just cobbled the rest of it together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. Worth having a look on the website, scottishroodsarchive.org, for anyone that doesn't know that already. I presume most people do.
Sure they do. Well, I don't think there's been any news about the Springburn Road. Has there been any plans or things mooted for changes with it, or any alterations that have happened,
Not
even
that
in
I've
recent
heard.
years or planned? The only thing I can think of is the big Sight Hill development that's going on next to it. But
Yeah,
other than that, it's
that is obviously a big thing. Yeah. It says here, I'm just reading again from the highway plan, just having a look at this. The Springburn Expressway is conceived as an improvement of the existing Springburn Road to expressway standards. About 1 mile of its total length would be totally reconstructed on a new alignment. And again, that's the section of Hawthorne Street.
yeah,
The rest of it is basically an online upgrade.
yeah. Well, they it was the thinking of the time, as we always say, and that brings us back. Yeah, because you think about the impact this road had, but you got to remember we're looking at it with 21st century goggles on. Back then, they looked at things very differently. In the 60s, especially, was a case of let's sweep away the old and rebuild. This is the new Britain. This is the new Glasgow. Sort of thing. Very, very different. It's actually funny because it's even more different now doing this podcast now than even when we started doing the podcast. Stuart, we've even got slightly different views on all these things just over the years. The culture of it has changed
Yeah,
and
but
molded
you
our
think about it,
opinions.
even in so we started doing these properly back in 2018, and the way we consider some of these roads has changed. I would say it's just the nature of things, isn't it? You have to keep an open mind with these things.
No, absolutely.
Things don't remain the same forever. I remember someone on social media saying the world is not a museum; it has to constantly change and evolve.
It's true.
You know,
If the world was a museum, we wouldn't even have this roadscast because there wouldn't have been any motorways. There wouldn't have been any roads to talk about.
yeah, good point.
Times have to, a change, and it brings change. So
And
there
that's
we
it. You're absolutely right. You know. But yeah, we do have. There is a wee bit about it in the documents that we've made available online. It is definitely worth looking up. Yeah. By the way, it should point out. I'm just looking through the highway plan. Traffic growth on the Springburn Road in the mid 1960s was 10% a year. That's huge. A lot of traffic increase.
Also, due to the fact that a lot of people were just getting vehicles and driving them at that point.
In 1954, the average weekday traffic flow on the Springburn Road was 8,000. By 1961, it was 15,000. So that more than almost doubled. So you can understand
the justifications for these things, the data-driven justifications.
Yeah.
You look at the photo of it, Stuart, of the Hawthorne Street when it opened. How clean and lovely it looks. I mean, it was obviously taken on a sunny day. It's all very different looking now. It's a lot of it's kind of grown up, vegetation-wise. But yeah, that was the bold new vision for Glasgow era. So, I don't know if there's too much more to say on this little road. I'm going to be honest. Any other little facts or things that you can see that pop out to you? Or should we move on to thanking our sponsors and plugging the website?
Even in the highway plan, they were conscious of the fact that any proposal was going to be contentious. And there's a section on page 62 that says, "We have prepared 3 preliminary schemes, none of which have a clear engineering or traffic advantage. The alternatives were referred to the planning division in view of the Springburn Site Hill study. A decision will be based upon their planning proposals. As yet, therefore, we have not completed detailed drawings for the expressway." So that explains why there's very little detail behind it in the plan. So even at the time, they were like, okay, this is going to be a challenging road to build.
Yeah.
Originally supposed to be built in full, by the way, between 1973 and 1975. Clearly, that didn't happen.
No, it wasn't completed until 1990.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. I was just looking through some of the highway plan documents there, see if I can find anything, but it is hogging my bandwidth, so I better stop.
Yeah, I mean, one of the good things about the documents we've put online is that they are searchable PDFs. So, like, where you've got the highway plan and it's 200, 300 pages, you can do just Control F and put Springburn in, just as I have there, and go through all the mentions to it,
No, you might start doing your own podcast then. Because it's just where we learned all this information just from looking through these things. Do you know, I'm going to use this point here. If you've got any it's a road that we don't actually know a lot about. We got some photos of its construction of the north end, but if you have any material about this, if you stay in Springburn or you know someone from there remembers all the activity of the time with this, if you've got anything that you think might be relevant to us to kind of tell the story about the Springburn Expressway some point in the future, then please get in touch with us. All our contact details on social media are also on our website as well. So I'd love to hear about it. I'm sure when we post the next Springburn post, there'll be plenty of comments as always.
Mm-hmm. You can bet.
Great. Well, that's about a wrap, Stuart. I think it's a nice, short and quick one for the Springburn Expressway.
Yep.
So I just wanted to take a chance to thank the sponsors, Andy Carruthers and the team at Eastwood Excavations, who got us the fantastic clobber, the fleeces.
Yep, branded clothing.
Branded clothing, which was really, really nice. I appreciate that support.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
And also Nigel and the team at Highway Barrier Solutions, who continue to support us every year and make sure that we can stay on the air.
Exactly.
With this
keep them
podcast
coming.
And all the hosting that comes with it. So thank you very much for that support.
Yeah. And I think Duncan is working away in the background on the various other podcasts for the rest of this year.
Yes. So hopefully another few ones about some major routes that he's working on. We've got a pretty cool one in the works to talk about the Churchill barriers whenever that one's ready. So something way up in Orkney, which I'm still yet to visit, but you know what? We're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So we do have some exciting plans for the podcasts of the future.
Yeah, sounds good. I should say about events that are coming up. We will be at the Bridgeton Bus Museum in May and July. If you want to come along and say hello, we'll be in our usual place there. We'll look forward to being there. It's always good to meet people.
Get to meet.
We
do autographs and everything as well.
Yeah, well, you keep dreaming there, John. So if you want to come along there, please come and say hello. A reminder as well that we still have our booklets available for sale on the website. All 6 of them are back in stock. We've topped up the stock levels on some of the more recent ones. That Clydeside Expressway booklet that we released a couple of years ago has been hugely popular.
It's because it's the best route. I keep saying this.
I know you keep saying that. Yeah. That one has. I think that's on like its 3rd print run now. So that's always doing very well. And same with the tunnel. So yeah, pick one of them up as well. And again, if you enjoy the podcasts, please take the time to leave us a review on whichever platform you listen to us. It's always good to hear from you, and it's a good way of us spreading the word as well as we try to bring in new listeners to these wonderful podcasts that we produce.
Wonderful being the key word. Don't forget about social media. We always say this before us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter, and we get we still do our then and now posts, all our historic posts on there. And it's a great way to keep in touch with us as well. So don't forget to follow on there.
And of course, the website that we mentioned earlier, scottishrhodsarchive.org, if go on there, you can choose between routes, articles, and photo galleries. There's 3 main sections there, and you can find information on.
Anything to look forward to on the website coming up, Stuart?
There's a lot of things in the works. Timings TBC. I would just say stay tuned. There are a few things being planned. Hopefully, some more route pages. A couple of articles. The big anniversaries this year are Skye Bridge turning 30 in October, and Ballachulish Bridge turning 50 in December.
That's the podcast. Yes, that's the big one. Yep.
And, one that we probably should mark, the Monkland Motorway, the first stage of the Monkland Motorway turns 50 in May, next month.
Oh, who could forget the Monklands? Well, I did. So, no, that's...
Yeah. So there you go, there's another one. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Well, look, I've really enjoyed this. It's been good to get back talking about roads again. Good. Do you know, from a nostalgic reason, good to be talking about some of the Glasgow ones again, because it's where we started, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've really enjoyed this, Stuart. I think it's been great. Thank you very, very much. And thanks for listening, and see you all next time.
Yeah, we will indeed. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.